Empress Seraphine's jeweled stylus bit into the treaty parchment with a hiss, sealing her name beside the human's precise scrawl, Jonah Marek. The grand hall of the Arethian thronehold echoed with the murmur of assembled dignitaries, their iridescent scales shimmering under the vaulted crystal domes as the fragile border piece took form in ink and obligation. She straightened, her golden mantle settling like a cascade of sunlight, and met the gaze of the human envoy across the dais. His eyes held no triumph, only the quiet resolve of a soldier handed an unwelcome duty. Neither had chosen this. Seraphine felt the coil of resentment tighten in her chest. Her throne demanded stability, not this diplomatic farce with a species barely acknowledged in galactic annals. Humans, soft-fleshed upstarts from a backwater fringe, their worlds uncharted by proper surveys, yet the border skirmishes with the Krell Dominion had bled her navy dry, and this union promised respite, a treaty marriage to bind their ragtag militias to her legions. She nodded curtly to the officiant, a wizened Vexari priest whose tentacles quivered in ritual approval. The pact is affirmed. Let the reception commence. The hall transformed in a whirl of silken banners and hovering servitors, trays of nectar fruits and spiced vapors drifting through the throng. Seraphine descended the dais, her advisors flanking her like shadowed wings. Lord Vesperus to her left, his scales etched with conservative sigils, and High Admiral Lirith to her right, his uniform crisp with battle honors. Jonah Marek followed at the prescribed distance, 3 paces behind and to her flank. As protocol dictated for a consort in binding, she spared him a glance over her shoulder, tall for his kind. Broad-shouldered in the stark black of human field dress, adapted to Arethian tailoring, his posture unyielding amid the fluid grace of her court. He moved without flourish, heels striking the marble in perfect cadence, eyes scanning the perimeter as if mapping threats amid the revelry. A cluster of minor nobles parted for him, their whispers trailing like vapor trails. "See how he holds himself? Rigid as a sentry drone," murmured Lady Thalira, her crest flange flickering with unease. "No deference in his step. Does he mistake this for a barracks muster?" Seraphine's lip twitched, propriety holding her expression serene, but she noted it. The human adhered to every bow, every ritual pause, yet infused them with a discipline that bordered on predatory. When a servitor veered too close, spilling a droplet of nectar, Jonah sidestepped without breaking stride, his hand steadying the tray mid-motion, a reflex so seamless it drew a ripple of scaled necks turning. Vesperus leaned in, voice a silken hiss. "Your radiance, this display. He apes our forms but reeks of frontier savagery." The court observes. Seraphine inclined her head fractionally, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet. "Let them observe, Lord Vesperus. Protocol is protocol. He honors it as well as any initiate." Internally, doubt flickered, not in the union's necessity, but in her own swift dismissal of the man. Humans were anomalies, their dossiers sparse. No innate energy fields, no symbiotic hives, just meat and will. Yet here he stood, unfatigued after hours of the signing vigil, multitasking greetings in flawless High Arethian while cataloging faces and allegiances. Her security chief would verify him, root out any hidden barbs. As the reception swelled, Seraphine signaled Captain Alondra from the shadows. The guardswoman approached, her armor humming faintly with shield harmonics. "Radiance?" Seraphine's gaze lingered on Jonah, now engaged in polite discourse with a cluster of naval aides. He nodded to their queries, his responses concise, drawing nods of reluctant approval. A full audit on the human consort. Background, loyalties, physiological baselines, discreetly, dispatched to the Shadow Archives at once. Alandra's scales rippled in affirmation, a subtle thrill of surprise in her stance. "As you command, though the treaty clears him." Seraphine's eyes narrowed. "Treaties bind empires, Captain. Individuals bear scrutiny." The evening crested toward its formal close when the conservative faction made their move. Lord Vesperus stepped forward unbidden, his entourage fanning out like a venomous bloom. Dukes and priest lords, their crests aligned in rigid opposition. The hall hushed as he knelt, presenting a crystal petition etched with 1,000 sigils. "Empress Seraphine, first of the lineage, warden of the veil. We, the preservers of purity, beseech reconsideration of this union. The Arethian bloodline endures through sacred lineage, not dilution with fringe world primitives. Their kind lacks our harmonic resonance. They bring chaos to our ordered stars. Honor demands we reject this before the galaxy witnesses our debasement." Murmurs erupted, scales flashing in agitation. Seraphine felt the weight of eyes upon her. Diplomats from allied sectors, Krell observers cloaked in neutrality, her own court teetering on the edge of fracture. Vesperus's flaw was ever his zeal, a moral rigidity that blinded him to pragmatism. He saw humans as pollutants, ignoring their malicious stubborn hold on the border. Jonah stood silent at her flank, hands clasped behind his back, betraying no reaction. Yet she sensed his awareness, a coiled readiness that steadied her own resolve. She raised a hand, the chamber falling to crystalline silence. Lord Vesperus, your petition is noted and archived. The Imperium's strength lies not in isolation, but in alliances forged of necessity and foresight. This union secures our borders, mends the rents in our navy's hulls. To retract now invites war's return, and diplomatic shame before the concordance. Her voice carried the full timbre of throne command, unyielding. Vesperus bowed low, but his crest dimmed with sullen light. The faction withdrew, whispers of schism lingering. Applause rippled, tentative at first, then fervent, her admirals foremost, Lyrath's nod one of quiet pride. Seraphine turned to Jonah then, the first direct address of the night. Consort Marek, the alliance stands proclaimed. You have borne the protocols with precision. He met her gaze steadily, no boast in his tone. An honor, your radiance. My duty is to serve the peace we've sealed. Simple words, yet laced with a humility that pierced her preconceptions. Humans, it seemed, bound themselves to oaths with a tenacity her archives barely charted. As the assembly dispersed into private salons, Seraphine conferred with Lyrath in an alcove, the admiral's massive frame casting protective shadow. The audit proceeds, but quarters must be assigned. Within the palace guard perimeter, close enough for oversight, yet granting him purpose, Lyrath's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Wise radiance, the humans' discipline tonight. It unsettled the preservers, but steadied the fleet officers. Perhaps there is utility in his kind. She nodded, propriety cracking just enough to reveal a spark of curiosity. Utility? Yes. And perhaps more. Protocol demanded proximity now. Oversight would reveal if this soldier was mere ornament or unexpected alloy. Alondra returned swiftly, saluting. Quarters prepared in the vanguard wing radiance, fortified adjacent to the guard barracks. Access to tactical hollows granted, per your prior edict on consort integration. Seraphine gestured Jonah forward, her voice formal, yet edged with intent. Consort Marek, you are quartered within the palace guard perimeter henceforth. Report to Admiral Lyrath at dawn for border briefings. The Imperium watches. He bowed precisely, his eyes holding a flicker of grounded optimism. Understood, Empress. I'll adapt as needed. As he departed under escort, Seraphine watched from the balcony, the throne-hold spires piercing the starlit void. Vesperus's petition gnawed at the edges of her certainty, but Jonah's unflagging poise amid the scrutiny hinted at depths unplumbed. Her initial dismissal felt thinner now, pierced by the whispers of his competence. The audit would confirm it, or expose the risk. For the Imperium's sake, she hoped for strength in this unlikely bond. Dawn would test them both. Dawn. Lord Vale rose from the shadowed arc of the High Council chamber, his iridescent scales flaring under the vaulted lumens as he slammed a crystalline data slate onto the obsidian table. By the lineage edicts of Elendor Prime, Empress Seraphine, I invoke formal challenge to this treaty farce. The human consort mocks our bloodlines. Invite the Cathari envoys now, and let their fleets witness our fracture before it shatters the Imperium. Seraphine felt the chamber's air thicken, 100 faction heads shifting in their lev thrones, whispers coiling like smoke from fractured loyalties. Her claws tightened on the armrests of the imperial dais, the weight of dawn's first light filtering through the thronehold's cryoveils. Vale's gambit was bold, threading ancient law through the treaty's loopholes to summon foreign eyes. Cathari predators who salivated at Arethian discord. She met his gaze, unyielding. The edict requires consensus, Lord Vale. Petition denied until the audit clears. Speak your evidence, or sit. Murmurs erupted as Vale's allies, hardline traditionalists from the Rim worlds, leaned forward, their tail frills vibrating in agitation. Seraphine's mind raced through alliances, the naval bloc held firm behind her, but the merchant guilds wavered, their ledgers bleeding from border skirmishes. Jonah's integration audit loomed, a fulcrum that could tip them. She signaled the chamber herald. Prepare the grand procession. Let the court witness stability, not schism. The procession unfurled through the palace's grand causeway, a river of silks and armor under the perpetual aurora of the Thronehold's shield dome. Seraphine glided at its heart atop her palanquin, Jonah Marak a step behind in his ceremonial harness, bronze latticed plate that marked him consort, not warrior. Protocol demanded he trail silently, a living emblem of the treaty. But his eyes scanned the throng with quiet vigilance, human posture unbowed amid the alien splendor. Crowds parted along the vaulted promenade, courtiers in fractal robes, lesser nobles with pheromone vents pulsing fealty scents. Jonah's breath came steady, syncing his steps to the rhythmic chime of escort chimes. Something tugged at his periphery, a flicker in the press, a hand too deliberate amid the sway. His training snapped in. Pattern break. The figure in pilgrim's cowl, scales dulled to blend, slipped a sliver of monofilament from a prayer bead, time compressed. Jonah pivoted without flourish, his hand lancing out to clamp the assassin's wrist mid-draw. The blade, poison-edged, curved for Orethian grips, halted inches from Seraphine's palanquin flank. Gasps rippled. Palace guards, ornate in their shock lances, froze a heartbeat behind protocols chaining their response to visual confirmation. Jonah twisted, disarming with a fluid lock that wrenched the attacker's arms skyward, exposing the venom reservoirs glinting in the light. He drove a knee into the assailant's midsection, folding them to the marble without excess force, then pinned them face down as the first guard lunged forward. Seraphine whipped around, her crest flaring in shock that she quelled to steel. The crowds recoiled, pheromone storms of fear and awe clashing. Jonah held the writhing form effortlessly, his voice low and even. Clear the path. He's rigged. Check the beads for secondaries. Guards swarmed, confirming the beads as micro-explosives, disarming them with fumbling haste. Vale's faction paled visibly from the viewing balconies, their envoy petition suddenly hollow. In the aftermath hush of the secure antechamber, Seraphine paced before her inner circle, the assassin's cowl discarded to reveal a rim-world radical branded with Valist sigils. Jonah stood at ease nearby, wiping residue from his hands, his harness unscathed. "Your consort acts beyond station," Admiral Korith rumbled, her naval braid clinking. "Protocol forbids arming non-bloodlines in procession." Seraphine's resolve hardened, the crack in propriety widening to a chasm. Jonah had moved before her elite guard, human reflexes threading the needle of crisis where Orethian rigidity lagged. She turned to him, voice resonant. "You will retain your place in the palace detail. No longer mere ornament. Guard the Thronehold directly." Jonah inclined his head, no boast in his tone. "As you command, Empress. Just doing what needed doing." Murmurs crested among the advisors. Tradition shattered like brittle crystal. Korith's frill twitched, respect edging her caution. While others exchanged glances, the humans poised, seeding doubt in old certainties. Word of the incident spread like rift fire through the palace webs, but by vespers, a subtler venom circulated. A forged dossier slipped into faction slates, branding Jonah a deserter from his world's wars, laced with falsified logs of cowardice and treaty sabotage. Seraphine intercepted it mid-transmission in her strategy vault, the holographic smear accusing her consort of smuggling intel to human enclaves. Her blood heated, leaks from within, Vale's shadowplay. She summoned advisor Liren, the guild scribe whose vents reeked of duplicity, into the vault's isolation field. "This fabrication bears your cipher fractal," she stated, projecting the dossier's ghost. Liren's scales blanched, tail coiling defensively. "Highness, whispers from reliable sources. Inquiry launches at dawn, confined to your quarters until palace security traces the origin." Seraphine's command brooked no appeal, her authority a blade unsheathed. Liren bowed out, trembling, as guards sealed his wing. She turned to the vault's core console, cross-referencing audit feeds. No leaks matched Jonah's movements. His log showed only meticulous reviews of shield rotations, human diligence spotting overlaps her teams had glossed. Proof against him or silence the gossip. She broadcast to the court nets, her imperial seal pulsing across every slate, factions stilled, Vale's momentum fracturing under the weight of her unyielding decree. In the quiet that followed, Jonah entered at her gesture, summoned from the detail muster. She faced him squarely, the vault's lumens casting long shadows. "The court tests us both. Accept formal commission as palace shield, your ceremonial veil lifts to true duty. Logistics, rotations, threat assessment, under my direct oath." Jonah paused, weighing her words with that steady human gaze, no trace of ambition. He'd spent the afternoon already sketching patrol redundancies on a borrowed slate, multitasking shield audits while debriefing guards on the assassin's evasion patterns. Adaptations they'd adopted without question. I accept, Empress, for the Imperium's stability. His voice carried quiet conviction, forging the bond from politics to pact. Seraphine nodded, a flicker of personal warmth piercing her regal mask. His competence wasn't spectacle. It was endurance and scrutiny, creativity and crisis, reading threats her protocols missed. Korath, lingering at the vault door, vented a low note of approval, alien respect dawning. Vale's challenge echoed fainter now, the treaty's unlikely pillar standing firmer as the vault seals hummed shut behind them. Seraphine glanced at the starfield beyond. The Cathari envoy's approach beacons winking distant. Dawn's tests multiplied. But in Jonah's unassuming stride beside her, she glimpsed a partnership transcending lineage. The palace stirred anew, whispers shifting from doubt to wary alliance. Seraphine strode into the Grand Synod chamber, her iridescent robes whispering against the polished obsidian floor, only to halt as holographic edicts flickered to life above the central dais. Arch-Scholar Lirath, his tendrils quivering with rehearsed fervor, bowed low. Empress, the Codex Primordia yields a forgotten decree, interdiction upon interspecies consorts, decreed in the fractured epoch to preserve lineage purity. We petition the High Tribunal forthwith. The chamber's air thickened, courtier scales shifting from gold to agitated crimson. Seraphine settled onto her throne, her gaze unyielding. Proceed, Arch-Scholar, but know the treaty binds us beyond ancient ink. Lirath's hollows projected crumbling glyphs, voices of long-dead jurists intoning prohibitions against dilution of sovereign essence. Murmurs rippled, Lord Vale's faction nodding approval, their economic allies among the trade guilds already signaling from shadowed alcoves. Seraphine felt the weight of it. Petitions filed, levers pulled. The tribunal's deliberation could span cycles, but the damage was sown. As the session dissolved into scripted debate, a calm chime pierced the tension. Captain Alandra's voice clipped. Empress, the human consort leads the border garrison drill. Results exceed projections. Seraphine's crest flared subtly. Transmit feeds. Now, the chamber's walls bloomed with live projections, the arid sprawl of Vanguard Outpost, where Jonah Merrick moved like a shadow amid Orethian cadets. No ornate armor adorned him, just human fatigues, scarred from forgotten skirmishes, a data slate in one scarred hand. He'd divided the exercise into 3 simultaneous vectors: infantry feints, aerial intercepts, and supply reroutes under simulated sabotage. Line spot here, Jonah's voice carried, calm as polished steel, pointing to a ravine overlook on the tactical overlay. Garrison captains rotate patrols clockwise, predictable from orbital scans, shift to staggered radials, incorporate drone decoys from the maintenance bays. Humans call it Murphy's Hedge. Assume every plan fails twice. Senior Captain Thalor, a veteran who scales bore nebula campaigns, hesitated, his frills flattening in confusion. Consort protocol dictates. Protocol dies first in ambush. Jonah didn't raise his voice. He simply pivoted, directing a squad with gestures that wove them into the terrain's folds. Hours blurred in the feed, cadets faltering at first, then sinking to his rhythm. Jonah himself hauled crates, recalibrated sensor arrays mid-stride, and barked corrections while scanning enemy sim patterns. No fatigue creased his features. Sweat beaded, but his focus sharpened. Thalor's frills perked as Jonah's adjusted lines repelled 3 mock assaults in sequence, exposing flaws the captains had drilled past for decades. Impossible, Thalor muttered, mandibles clicking. He multitasks faint layers we compute in shifts, and that pattern, linking ravine echoes to jammer ghosts? No rote sim predicts it. Seraphine watched, her claws tapping the armrest. Jonah's unassuming competence cracked the room's propriety. Even Vale leaned forward, eyes narrowing not in scorn, but calculation. The drill ended with Jonah's forces holding 92% integrity, outrunning Thalor's best by margins unseen in a generation. Redeploy those captains to briefings, Seraphine commanded as the hollows faded, and summon the consort. He joins strategic sessions henceforth. Order a full joint review of defense protocols, starting at Dawnspire. Courtiers exchanged glances, Vale's voice rising smooth as venom. Empress, with respect, the tribunal. We'll deliberate, she cut in, voice like tempered crystal. We defend now. In the antechamber shadows, Lord Vale activated his private relay. Merchants of Kithari Prime, the petition advances. Press your embargoes, titanium shipments, crystal lattices, all halted unless the treaty fractures. The Empress bends to gold as to law. Across the void, guild voices crackled assent, their ledgers already tilting. Fiscal pressure mounted like a siege. Shipyards starved, alliances frayed. Vale severed the link, satisfaction coiling in his gut. The humans' parlor tricks wouldn't outlast empty vaults. Seraphine dismissed the synod with a gesture, retreating to her strategium as alerts pinged, trade disruptions rippling from the core worlds. She summoned legal Marshal Corin, the chamber's apex lights dimming to intimate glow. Draft emergency statutes. Shield the treaty under sovereign exigency. Border threats supersede archaic interdictions. Invoke the Vale Accords. Precedents from the last incursion. Corin's quill scratched furiously, his multifaceted eyes whirring. Empress, the tribunal delays could span moons. This buys time, but Vale's guilds. Time is our blade, she replied, her tone broking no fracture. Protocol cracked, yes, but strength held. In Jonah's stride, she'd seen not dilution but reinforcement, a human who endured drills that winded her finest, who wove tactics from overlooked threads. Mutual, she mused. He learned their hierarchies even as they glimpsed his depths. Dawnspire light filtered through the war room's viewports as the joint review convened. Hollow maps sprawled, border garrisons pulsing red with vulnerabilities, Cathari envoys' beacons inching closer. Jonah entered last, nodding to Seraphine with quiet deference. No consort's flourish, just a soldier's readiness. Captains flanked the table, Thalor still buzzing from the drill. Consort Myrek, Seraphine opened, her voice carrying imperial weight laced with intent. Your exercise revealed fractures. Speak. Jonah stepped to the central projection, fingers dancing across the interface, adapting its alien glyphs mid-scan, a fluency that drew subtle frill twitches from the officers. Empress, captains. The ravine blind aligns with 3 others. Orbital shadows mask them during eclipse cycles. Standard protocol stacks patrols linear. Enemies exploit that. He overlaid sims, pulling data from logistics feeds, weather archives, even merchant shipping logs, patterns no single Arethian mind juggled without aids. Link them. Deploy micro-relays in the maintenance drones we repurposed. They bounce signals off ravine walls, creating false echoes. Foes commit to ghosts, we flank real. Costs nothing but recalibration. Implement by dusk. Thalor's mandibles parted. You? Connected shipping manifests to terrain denial? That's not doctrine. It's adaptation, Jonah said simply, meeting the captain's gaze. Humans run ops where plans shift hourly. We endure the chaos. Seraphine studied the projection, the adjustment snapping vulnerabilities shut like a closing gauntlet. Vale's faction would howl, guilds squeeze harder, but borders held. Authorized. Captain Thalor, execute, immediately. Consort, you oversee integration. The room stirred, not with outrage, but a dawning gravity. Thalor saluted crisply. As commanded, Empress, and with the consort's insight. As text swarmed the maps, Seraphine caught Jonah's eye. No triumph lit his face, just steady resolve. The humility of one who saw his feats as mere duty. Her crest warmed, in this human protocol bent not to weakness, but to wisdom. Whispers beyond the doors shifted further, from wary alliance to something perilously like trust. Yet Vale's shadows lengthened. Tribunal dockets swelled, guild freighters diverted, practical defenses rose, but ancient laws clawed back, and the soldier now sat at the strategist's table. The envoy's beacons brightened, choices loomed sharper than blades. Chants rose like venomous smoke through the grand plaza of Elisara, where merchant stalls buckled under the press of a swelling mob. Traders consort, human filth sells our borders. Placards thrust skyward bore Jonah Merrick's face, twisted beside holographic smears of insurgent camps. Forged images alleging his whispers fueled the frontier raids. Jonah strode through the throng toward the guild pavilion, his ceremonial robes ill-suited to the jostle, eyes scanning the faces, merchants pale with fretted scales, workers with clenched mandibles, a corps of agitators too synchronized in their fury. He spotted the shift first, a ripple in the crowd's chaos, 3 figures peeling from the flanks. blades glinting beneath cloaks. Not random, their steps matched a rehearsed arc, aimed to corner him against the pavilion's marble flank. Jonah's hand dipped to the concealed stun cord at his belt, a human field tool adapted for Arethian grips. "Clear the path," he called evenly to the nearest guards, voice cutting the din without shout. The lead attacker lunged, a curved dagger arcing for his throat. Jonah sidestepped, cord whipping out to snare the wrist with a crackling bind. The man, scaled, veilist insignia hidden under his tunic, stumbled, eyes widening at the unyielding loop. The second came low, sweeping for knees. Jonah pivoted, multitasking the third's overhead slash by ducking and looping the cord's secondary tether around the attacker's ankle. He yanked, toppling both into a tangle as the first thrashed futilely against the self-tightening weave. Non-lethal, precise, human special ops doctrine, born of endless drills where killing sowed endless reprisals. The plaza stilled in shock, protesters gaping as Jonah knelt, pinning the trio with cord extensions while pocketing their daggers and a data slate from the leader's pouch. "Stage," he said to the rushing palace guard captain, tossing the slate. "Timestamps doctored, but the origin ping traces to a Veilist proxy server. Check the bioscans. Adrenaline spikes predate the chance." The captain, a stern-jawed Arethian with Lieutenant bars, snatched the slate, his crest frills flaring in disbelief. "You subdued them without a mark? And evidence?" He signaled his squad, who hauled the attackers away amid murmurs rippling outward. Not rage now, but stunned whispers. The human anticipated. He read their intent like a battle map. Jonah rose, dusting his robes, pulse steady despite the adrenaline. Another day in the field, though these fields were paved in gold and politics. Merchants edged closer, one venturing a nod. "Guild losses mount from these lies, consort, if you're clean." From the palace balcony overlooking the plaza, Empress Seraphine watched, her throne vision feed magnifying every feint and bind. Jonah's movements flowed with an effortless rhythm her tacticians drilled for cycles yet never mastered. Reading intent not from data logs, but from the flicker of a shoulder, the micro-twitch of a tail. Her advisors clustered behind her, Lord Kalis hissing, "Majesty, recall him, silence the spectacle." But Seraphine raised a gauntleted hand, her voice resonant over the comms. "No. Broadcast this. Let the Imperium see justice unfold in the light." She turned from the feed as the plaza feeds went live empire-wide, overriding the smear holos. "Open the palace archives," she commanded her chamberlain, striding past the protesting cluster of counselors. "Full access. From Vale's correspondence vaults to merchant guild relays. Trace every thread of this libel. Now." Kalis's frills quivered. "Empress protocol demands discretion. Public scrutiny invites more unrest. Protocol bends to truth." Seraphine cut in, her tone formal, ice cracking towards steel. "The soldier has given us proof in bloodless steel. We will not cower while shadows dictate our sight." Her inner circle exchanged glances. Her rigidity on lineage and Navy command was legend, yet here she overruled them for a human's mettle. Seraphine felt the weight of it, a personal tether forming amid the intrigue. Jonah's humility in crisis mirrored her own burdens, uncelebrated yet vital. By evening, the envoy's chamber thrummed with veiled threats. Ambassadors from the fringe Concord, sleek, bioluminescent Clythar with pulsing negotiation veins, leaned forward, their translator orbs humming. "Empress Seraphine," the lead intoned. "Lord Vale's claim garners momentum. Recognize it formally. Annul this. Union and our fleets withhold recognition. Your borders fray, insurgents laugh. Act within the cycle, or we illuminate his legitimacy across the stars." Seraphine's gaze held like a lance, her crown gems catching the light. "Your beacons flicker with opportunism, Envoy Thalor. Vale's claim is a frayed tapestry of ambition. The marriage stands, ratified by treaty, proven in plaza steel today." Thalor's veins dimmed in surprise. Such direct defiance cracked the dance of indirection they prized. She dismissed them with a wave, guards escorting them out as whispers of her resolve spread. The High Council chamber convened at her summons, vaulted ceilings echoing with tension. Lords and ministers arrayed in tiered seats, frills and crests attuned to every nuance. Seraphine ascended the dais, her presence commanding silence. "This smear alleges collusion with border foes. Evidence mounts against it, presented by the consort himself, without excess force." Murmurs swelled, Lord Vale's proxies shifted uneasily. Due process demands archives and tribunals, she continued, voice weaving authority with unyielding propriety. Those who amplified these lies, Lord Draven, your guild proxies, Minister Alara, your silenced relays, your privileges curtail forthwith, no fleet access, no trade concessions, until cleared. Draven's scales blanched. Majesty, this impugns loyal houses. But Seraphine's eyes quelled him. Loyalty proves itself in light, not whispers. The human earns his place through deeds. Question that, and you question the throne's judgment. The council bowed, a fracture visible. Her defense of Jonah wasn't mere politics, but a stand cracking the court's ancient protocols for something raw, merit amid lineage. Later, in the Strategium's shadowed annex, Jonah waited as permitted, archive slates arrayed before him. Seraphine entered alone, her robes whispering finality. Your leads, consort. Speak. He tapped the central slate, patterns leaping to life. Cross-referenced pings from Vale's estates to agitator dropships, merchant diversions timed to starve loyal ports. Insurgents hit supply nodes, but these smears divert guild freighters preemptively. Patterns here. Vale starves the borders to force my recall, painting me saboteur. Counter. Reroute via auxiliary lanes I charted last cycle. Human logistics nets them tighter. Multitasks patrols with resupply. Your navy's precision plus this holds the line. Seraphine's crest lifted fractionally, a rare tell of intrigue yielding to connection. Humans juggled crises as breath. Her species sequenced them rigidly. Admirably so. Yet his adaptability bridged gaps she'd not foreseen. You briefed the select ministers at dawn. Trusted only. Kalis, the fleet admiral. She paused, propriety thinning. Today you turned ambush to proof. The court sees it now, however grudgingly. Jonah nodded, humble as ever. Just work. Patterns any captain spots. Team effort, Empress. Your archives gave the threads. A shared glance lingered, the alliance forging deeper. Her strength in command. His in the unforeseen. Outside, Envoy's beacons pulsed warnings, Vale's shadows coiling tighter. But choices sharpened not to blades alone, to bonds that might yet reweave the realm. Seraphine's throne chamber thrummed with the urgent chime of a frontier relay, the holographic sphere igniting mid-sentence as Vale's envoy droned on about factional concessions. Border Commander Lirath's scaled face materialized, his crest flared in alarm, voice slicing through the senatorial murmurs like a plasma blade. Empress, incursion at 3 vectors. Valor pickets breached, timed to your summit. They've seized Bastion Epsilon. Supply convoys, burning. The Senate chamber fell to a stunned hush. Envoy's beacons strobing red as scheming whispers died. Seraphine rose, her iridescent robes whispering against the dais, golden eyes locking on the projection where enemy signatures swarmed like locusts. Protocol demanded deliberation. Votes tallied in gilded halls while borders bled, but this was no coincidence. Vale's shadows uncoiling precisely now. Prioritize defense, she commanded, voice steel-wrapped silk. Senators, your maneuvers wait. Lirath, full tactical overlay. Now. Jonah stood at her flank, unobtrusive in his adapted field harness, but she felt his gaze sharpen on the hollow, tracing vectors, supply choke points, the subtle feint in the enemy's flank. He'd spotted it first in her archives, those human patterns others dismissed as barbaric intuition. As projections bloomed, enemy drop pods cratering the bastion's outer ring, Arethian defenders pinned. She turned to him, the weight of eyes upon them both. Consort Merrick, your assessment? Knight Sadi, ma'am, he said evenly, pointing to the shadowed ridgeline. Their orders will be in the command vault. Capture those. We know their next push. My team can reclaim it quiet. Hold till dawn reinforces. No bravado. Just the calm of a man who'd run ops on worse worlds, his human frame unbowed by the chamber's tension. Lirath's crest twitched skepticism. A consort leading Arethian blades? Tradition breeds graves, Seraphine cut in, her decision crystallizing. Protocol cracked like old armor. She'd wed this human for symbols, not swords. Yet his mind wove threads her admirals chased and wrote sims, authorized. Limited field command. Jonah, as tactical liaison. Move. Hours bled into the void-black frontier night, Seraphine's shuttle slicing toward the forward base under cloaked escort. She'd abandoned the throne's safety for this gamble. eyes on the prize of unity, or ruin. Jonah's sortie had launched without fanfare, his mixed squad vanishing into the ridges. 10 Erythians, his steady voice threading their comms with adjustments no sim predicted. From the command shuttle's viewport, she watched thermal ghosts flicker, his team breaching the bastion's undergrid, silent as void wraiths. Lyrath, strapped beside her, vented frustration through flared gills. Humans tire after shifts we'd call a warm-up. This sortie risks, a ping cut him. Jonah's voice, gravel steady. Vault secured, orders confirm pincer on our flanks tomorrow. Valor faint to draw Navy Corpsward, position held. Minimal losses. Cheers crackled over the link, Orethian squad mates rumbling awe at the human who'd multitasked breaching charges, suppressor fire, and vault cracking while they focused one task at a time. Seraphine's pulse quickened. Not just victory's thrill, but the sight of it. Jonah emerging on hollow feed, bloodied harness askew, directing barricades with casual efficiency. He'd worked through the night, endurance her warriors envied, spotting the enemy's pattern in debris trails. Lyrath stared, crest flattening in reluctant wonder. He adapted our gridlocks mid-fight, improvised a choke from scrap. The field base loomed, a scarred fortress amid asteroid drifts. As her shuttle grounded, Seraphine stepped into the chill command blister, Jonah saluting crisply amid cheering blades. Up close, his eyes held no triumph, just fatigue masked by focus. Humble, as if reclaiming bastions were mere drill. Empress, lines are ours. She nodded, propriety straining against the urge to grip his arm. Well struck, liaison. Now, the real work. But shadows stirred beyond the viewports, cloaked figures breaching the outer pickets, assassins' vibrodaggers glinting under emergency strobes. Chaos erupted. A blade slashed through the blister's seal, 3 shadows lunging, Valor cultists, faces masked in fanatic fervor. Lyrath lunged, plasma carbine barking, but the lead assassin vaulted him, dagger arcing for Seraphine's throat. Jonah moved like liquid night, slamming into her, his body a shield as the blade skittered off his harness. Pain flared in his shoulder. Grazed, but he rolled, drawing his sidearm in a blur, popping 2 headshots while kicking the third into Lyrath's fire. The blister reeked of ozone and blood. Jonah rose, hauling her up, eyes scanning for more. Clear, ma'am. Perimeter breach plugged. Seraphine's breath steadied, her hand lingering on his arm. Strength met strength. Protocol be damned. Lyrath gaped at the human, who'd read the assassin's subtle feints amid blade work, emotional reads on their fanatic tells that rigid training overlooked. You shielded the Empress. Took the edge, without falter. Just reflex, Jonah murmured, binding his grays with field tape, already turning to consoles. Patterns in their rush, desperate, not pro, means Vale's pushing hard elsewhere. She straightened, voice ringing through the blister's speakers. All commands, endorse Marek's fortification plan. Triple supply lines, choke vectors here, drone relays there, implement at once. His tactics turned this tide. Hollow maps flared to life under Jonah's hands, his fingers dancing across alien interfaces he'd mastered in days. Adaptability weaving human creativity into Orethian steel. Admirals' voices crackled assent, amazement threading their tones. A human juggling logistics, psych profiles, and improv defenses. By dawn, the bastion thrummed with reinforced bulwarks, enemy pincers shattering on fortified chokes. Reports flooded in. Valor retreat crumbling, their orders' secrets unraveling their grander scheme. Wavering allies, house lords who'd hedged bets in senatorial games, now pledged legions. The Empress's consort reclaims what we thought lost. Seraphine commands true vision. From the blister's overlook, Seraphine watched Jonah coordinate the final sweeps, his team, Orethian and human forged, moving as one. Lyrath approached her, crest low in respect. I researched humans after the archives. Endurance like void beasts, minds linking dots across voids we silo. He's no mere soldier. No, she agreed, gaze on Jonah's unassuming form, bonds reweaving amid the stars. He's partnership. Political momentum surged her way, factions realigning not to fear, but to the alliance proving its steel, her command, his unforeseen edge. Yet Vale's shadows lingered, deeper threats coiling. The frontier held, but the realm's heart still teetered on choices forged in fire. Explosions rocked the spires of Aurelia Prime, the capital's crystalline heart shuddering as enemy corvettes breached the outer shields. Seraphine gripped the command dais in her throne chamber, her iridescent scales flaring crimson with restrained fury, while holographic feeds screamed of coalition dreadnoughts unleashing plasma barrages. "Status," she demanded, voice a silken blade cutting through the clamor of aides. "Shields at 40%, Majesty," Captain Lyra reported, her crest flattened in alarm. "The Valor Concord's vanguard has landed shock troops in the lower districts." Tribunal whispers grow louder. They draft the deposition even now. Seraphine's mandibles clicked once, a tick betraying the fracture in her regal facade. The High Tribunal, those gilded vipers poised to strip her throne if stone cracked before steel. But her gaze flicked to Jonah Marek, the human standing resolute amid the hollow projections, his plain fatigue smeared with siege dust, eyes tracing troop flows with unnatural focus. He had woven the city's veins into a defensive web hours ago. Merchant guilds pledging wagons under fire, granaries rerouted through hidden aqueducts. What her courtiers deemed impossible he had bartered with quiet words and unyielding patience, reading guildmasters' fears like open scrolls. "Jonah," she said, the name steady on her tongue despite the chaos. "Your urban grid?" He didn't look up from the flickering map, fingers dancing across 3 data streams at once, infantry positions, supply lines, battery arcs, while murmuring adjustments into a comlink, holding Seraphine. "Guilds are rolling munitions from the Undercity. We've got endurance for 3 cycles without resupply. But we need the batteries synced to my strike windows. Fire on my mark, or we lose the flanks." Her advisors recoiled, crests rippling in shock. Unconventional. Reckless. Protocol demanded fleet volleys and rigid salvos, not this human's improvised rhythm. Lyra's scales paled. "Majesty, the ancient batteries are tuned for orbital supremacy, not street-level precision. A mistime could slag her own lines." Seraphine met Jonah's eyes, seeing not arrogance but the calm assurance of one who had endured worse. Planetary sieges, endless patrols, forging alliances from mud and desperation. He wasn't boasting. This was his normal, pieced from patterns others missed. Her empire's rigid genius cracked against his fluid edge. "Do it," she commanded, overriding the murmurs. "Prime the batteries to his signal. All power to his timing." The chamber hushed, then erupted in frantic relays. Jonah nodded once, a flicker of shared resolve passing between them. No words, just the bond forged in frontier fires. As the first enemy wave surged through shattered gates, he vanished into the lifts, leading his mixed strike teams. Orethian Marines alongside human tactics, their loyalty bought not by decree but by his relentless example. From the throne's overlook, Seraphine directed the counterstroke, her voice threading politics into war. "Admiral Kaylor, vector the Second Fleet to pinch their dreadnoughts. Flank, not frontal," as Jonah plotted. She patched through to the tribunal's chamber mid-barrage, her hologram materializing amid their shocked assembly. "Lords witness. The city endures. Depose me if you will, but first see what alliance births." Below, the assault churned into frenzy. Jonah's teams darted through smoke-choked alleys, his voice steady over comms. "Alpha, hold the aqueduct. Reroute those plasma carts now. Bravo, faint left, draw their heavies." He juggled it all, directing fire teams, haggling with a guild runner mid-skirmish for fresh relays, adapting to a collapsed span by rigging merchant drones as spotters. Orethian Marines gaped at his stamina. Where their crests drooped after hours, he pressed on, spotting enemy patterns in debris falls and wind shifts, linking them to fleet vectors overhead. Lyra, patched in from a forward post, transmitted awe through her feed. "Human, our finest falter after one cycle. You weave chaos like thread." Jonah's reply crackled back, laced with dry humor. "Just stubborn, Cap'n. Learned at hauling gear through storms back home. Your Marine's precision fills the gaps. Keep those lances tight." Seraphine's claws tightened on the dais as Jonah's mark flashed. Fire. The capital batteries thrummed, ancient barrels swiveling with improbable grace to his beat. Not salvos, but staccato pulses that cratered enemy clusters while sparing her lines. Coalition troops reeled, their advance splintering. She seized the moment, signaling Kaelor. "Now, envelop them." The fleet descended like gilded falcons, her political whispers ensuring no rival admiral hesitated. In the lower districts, Jonah's team struck home. He led the breach himself, plasma rifle barking as he flanked a Valor walker, barking orders in flawless Orethian laced with guild slang. "Flank it, use the merchant barricades." An Arethian sergeant, crest high with newfound fire, covered him. Your eyes see what ours blind to, consort to be. Together they toppled the beast, humans' grit meshing with Arethian discipline. The tide broke, enemy corvettes shattered under dual assault, batteries and fleet and shock troops routed through booby-trapped streets. As dawn crested the spires, cheers echoed from the walls. Seraphine descended to the command nexus, her robes singed but posture unbowed, finding Jonah amid exhausted teams. He wiped blood from a shallow cut, already sketching reconstruction grids. Their eyes met. A quiet current beneath the din. Fear transmuted to steel. She convened the tribunal at once, striding into their vaulted hall with Jonah at her side, Marines flanking. Gasps rippled as holographic replays bloomed. His logistics holding the city, her orders turning the tide. Lords, she proclaimed, voice resonant with imperial weight. The interdiction of old, barring alien consorts from governance, ends today. Jonah Marek is imperial consort, with full authority in tactics and reconstruction. Swear fealty to this alliance or depart my court. Silence fractured. Lord Varen, once a foe, knelt first, crest bowed. Your vision proves true, Majesty. The humans weave, extraordinary. We align. Others followed. Some grudging. Whispers of his impossible endurance. His reading of merchant hearts where protocol failed. A few, like scheming Thalor, were ushered out by guards, their motions shredded. The Empire's net flared with dispatches. Frontier lords hailing the victory, merchants toasting the consort who secured their hoards. Seraphine and Jonah stood on the grand balcony as reconstruction began. Crews already hauling crystal from rubble, his plans integrating guild fleets with naval yards. Her hand brushed his arm, a rare informality amid the aids. You turned siege to salvation, she murmured. He shrugged, humble as ever, eyes on the horizon. We did, Seraphine. Your fleet sealed it. Precision I couldn't match. But in her core, amazement bloomed. This human, deeming it ordinary, had upended her world. Her advisors clustered, researching human lore in hushed fervor, endurance from harsh worlds, minds linking disparate threads. Veil's shadows receded. Respect wove the realm anew. She was born to rule, and learned that true power lay in finding an equal.